is Wednesday, and my God, we've got an amazing show for you today. We've got some great guests and we've got some great news. People coming in from all over the world. I see the numbers are already near getting close to 100 people. So people coming in we've got Ray Abbott coming in from Vancouver. We've got people coming in from Wales. We've got Kennedy from Phoenix. We've got people coming in from all over, which is great because we've got some lovely people on the show today and some really, really important subjects. I see we've got Tess coming from Indiana. We've got Tally coming in. I thought Tally was on a ferry. That's great. We've got Carolyn coming in from Detroit. People coming in from all over, which is just fantastic. Let's see who is out there. I can see. Oh, Pat's come in. Our old friend Pat. We've got Anthony Gonzalez. We've got Sarah. We've got Rob Zeitz. We've got people coming in from all over, which is just wonderful to see you all. So anyway, let me just talk about things. Let's take Rob. I think you're stuck on screen. Maybe Kari can just take Rob off for me off screen. Although it's always lovely to see you there, Rob. So I want to talk about what we've got on the show today. What we've got is we're going to be talking with the wonderful Billy Ho about the concept of intentionality. Now, intentionality, I'll be honest, isn't a word I was that familiar with, but it is so important philosophically and in terms of what people are doing. We're going to be just talking about the EA program. And when I told people we had Billy Ho on the show, people go, oh, he is lovely. Billy, people seem to love you. I don't know how you manage it, what the magic is, but you've got a lot of fans out there. So we've got one of Mobility's just nice guys on the show today, which is so exciting. We've also got some wonderful or really important news. We've got Julia also Cole talking about Australia, and there's been some big immigration updates there. And also Julie Barron from Vialto is going to be talking to us about tax treaties, in particular US Chile. So we've got some really significant stuff to talk about on the show today. But you know how it works. If you're out there, please join in the conversation, write in the comments box, tell us who you are, where you are, and Cara will put your names on screen too so that we can all see who's out there. So please do let us know. And if you've got questions, then shout out those questions as we go through. And if you want credits, now I know a lot of you want those credits from ERC or from SHRM or from HRCI. These are the credits. So many thanks to our good friends at Worldwide ERC, and they're the credits for GMS or CRP. And also, if you want your HRCI or SHRM credits, they're there also. Many thanks to our good friends at Rocket Mortgage who help us with those. Now, this week we're talking about intentionality. Next week we've got a fantastic show for you today. Next week rather, we're going to be talking about a thing called smart cost estimates and how we made them a whole lot smarter. Now, I know that many of you will have seen the show a few months ago when we launched smart cost estimates, and we showed how cost estimates can be instant and intelligent. What we're going to show you next week is super cool, because what people have always said to me with cost estimates is cost estimates are good as far as they go, but then I want to do a lot of what ifs, and I want to say, well, what about if the duration is different, or the location is different, or the tax year has changed, or this or that, and I do different what ifs. And people do a lot of what ifs, and that can be expensive, but it can be time consuming. But what we've developed is you don't have to do the what ifs, because with the new technology, the technology does the what ifs for you. So instead of just giving you one cost estimate, it actually runs about 100 different scenarios, gives you your original one, but also gives you alternative scenarios. So, well, under these alternative scenarios, then you could reduce the cost or the investment you're making in moving somebody from X to some other number. So, and that's using, we've partnered with Vialto, and it's using their tax logic, but some really cool stuff coming out next week in terms of what we're calling dynamic cost estimates. So taking smart cost estimates and making them just a whole lot smarter. So we've got that to share with you next week. And if you like cost estimates, if tax is your thing or cost estimates is your thing, do make sure you tune in. We'll be sharing all that with you next week. So what's been going on this week? Well, let's have a look. Let's see what is the breaking news that's been going on in our industry. So much breaking news. Many congratulations to everybody who's moved job. I've seen lots of promotions as well, so that's all really exciting. And if you're looking, there are just loads of jobs out there, which is always an encouraging sign. So if you are looking, then please do reach out to any of those companies, and hopefully we'll help you find a job. If, by the way, you are looking to hire somebody, then just pop us a note and we'll see if we can promote your job opportunity for you and get it out as a service we offer to our wonderful community. We've got nearly 160 people watching on LinkedIn alone, and that's before we add in YouTube and Facebook. So I better get on because we've got so much to talk about. So we're going to be on Julia Onslow Cole to talk about today's important immigration update. So you know how it works. I want to see the screen light up. Please hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's welcome onto our stage the wonderful Julia Onslow Cole.
Hi, Brian.
Hey, Julia. How are you doing?
Very well, yes. I haven't got a lovely little cat like Billy, though.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we saw that on the holding slide. And if we're very lucky, Billy's cat will be joining us shortly. It may actually be the first time I've interviewed a cat. So we'll talk about that. But Julia, tell us about Australia. That's been your big focus of the week, hasn't it? So tell us what's going on.
So I just want to say thank you to the folks in the Fragoman Australia office, and particularly to Charles Johannes. So there's a new, obviously, as you know, there was a new Labour government. It came into power in May of last year after 9 years of coalition government. And this year, in May this year, it was the first time that the government had a surplus in 15 years. And that was really for three main reasons. Commodity prices have increased. There's been some heavy spending cuts, and there was very strong job growth. There are obviously some economic worries, which is slightly contagious from the globe. High inflation. Inflation's about 7% in Australia, and they've got relatively high interest rates compared to what they had before. But I mean, they're interest rates that we would prefer, the high being 4.1%. But the Labour figures are really holding up. So against this background, the new incoming Labour government decided to do a really thorough review of immigration, and it's really once in the generation reform. They did this expert panel, they commissioned an expert panel that produced a report. And then I'm just going to talk about the key highlights of what's come out of it. So the first thing is that they have increased the salary levels for the TSS visa. And the TSS visa is the primary sponsored work visa category. They've put it up from 43,900 Australian dollars to 70,000. And although that does sound quite a lot, this is the first rise in 10 years. But more positively for employers, what they've done is that TSS visa holders who are on short-term occupations now have a pathway to permanent residence. And that's very attractive. And moreover, they've actually reduced the period to get to permanent residence from 3 years to 2 years. Also, they've simplified all the migration system in terms of categories, rules, and requirements. And they've taken very much an evidence-based approach to migration decisions. And it was really interesting researching this because it's very similar to what the Labour Party in the UK is saying about how they would look at migration. So rather than having like shortage occupation lists and making employers do labour market testing, the Labour Party in the UK say that they would be much better coordinated in integrating the labour market and training with migration, and that's what Australia have done. And also Australia have coordinated with all the states and territories so that they can actually have a real voice and say, well, actually, this is the impact of migration policies in our state or territory. And this is what we need in terms of housing. So all of this is incredibly positive, and it seems like really common sense, but it doesn't really happen in many other countries. The other thing is they've strengthened up assessments for students. Again, that's really a global theme. And then they've really toughened up penalties for employers who are not really protecting migrants. So they've allowed migrants to more easily move, because moving employers is something that really protects people. And there's real tougher penalties if employers have exploited workers. They've actually put in 50 million Australian dollars into compliance and enforcement. And there's a very interesting development, which is they've introduced an aged care industry labour agreement. So if you're a provider that's providing care for the elderly, then you can apply for these special TSS visas. So that's very positive. But you have to sign up directly with the relevant union. And this is, again, a first, because before we've seen, that there are rules saying that you have to, support the principles, but this is actually making employers sign up. And then there's new rules on employment law, which again protect workers, so you can't have an interminable fixed term contract. And then the other thing to say, at the same time of all of these reforms, Australia has entered into free trade agreements with the UK and Indonesia, New Zealand and India. And there's mobility, really good mobility clauses in all of this. So in summary, the pace of change is high. It's really important for employers to employ people in Australia to get to grips with all of this, because there's many ways that you could really take advantage of some of the new things like pathways to permanent residence and special sectors. And on the other hand, you really need to understand the sort of stricter compliance landscape. Thanks.
Okay, Julia, that's, as ever, that's just the most amazing update. It was just concise, it was important, and it was just fascinating information you were sharing. So thank you so much. So on behalf of everybody in our industry, a big thank you to Julia, and also a big welcome to Julie Barron, who we bring back on show to be giving us our tax update. So everybody, you know how it works. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button. Let's say a big thank you to Julia Onslow-Cole and a big welcome to Julie Barron. Hey, Julie. Good to see
Brian.
you.
Good to see you.
So,
I have to say, Brian, I think both Julia and I are a little jealous of Billy and his popularity and his cat. So, yes.
That's the secret, I think. You need to have a cat.
I need to have a cat. I know. I got to think about that one.
You got a rabbit, I gather.
I do have a rabbit, but I don't think my rabbit will show up on screen.
Oh, no. Oh, bring the rabbit. What's the rabbit's name?
The rabbit's name is Caramel. Right. It's caramel colored. Yeah.
Okay. So this week we got Stinky Tofu. Maybe in another week we'll get to see Caramel.
Caramel, yeah. All food-based, I guess.
Absolutely. Okay. Anyway, so Julie, what are you going to be talking to us about today?
Today I'm going to talk about some of the U.S. income tax treaties, kind of spurred on by the recent approval of the U.S.-Chile treaty. So basically, last month, there was an approval done by the U.S. Senate of the U.S.-Chile treaty. And that treaty had been waiting for approval from the U.S. Senate for 13 years. So it is such an old treaty that they had to change some of the clauses in the treaty to be updated to the new treaties. And it started me thinking about all the different things that have happened with US treaties over the past couple decades. And I just thought, well, this might be an interesting update for our listeners to think about. Okay, this is what's going on the US treaty front. So it took 13 years. What?
Who doesn't like a good tax treaty? Let's do it.
Really, we all like good tax treaties. Yeah,
absolutely.
So it took 13 years to get the Senate to approve this treaty. And really, there's been no movement in the past decade on most treaties. There's been some protocols agreed, but there really has been this stall in treaties. And the Senate has disagreed with some of the provisions in some treaties, and so that's really stalled out. So while the U.S. has 58 active treaties, we actually have a treaty that's going to be canceled as of January 1st of 2024, and that's the treaty with Hungary, because the U.S. government didn't like some of the ways that Hungary taxes things. So
there'll now be no treaty at all with Hungary.
There'll be no treaty at all as of January 1st of 2024. So that's an interesting little development. There was some work right now with the treaty with Croatia and Colombia, but Chile is only the third Latin American country that the U.S. has a treaty with. So we have a treaty with Venezuela, which is an older treaty, obviously, because of the oil there. And we have a treaty with Mexico, but Chile is only the third Latin American country where we actually have a treaty. So it's kind of interesting to think about, what in politics affects treaties. You wouldn't think that that would get caught up in the U.S. Senate, but this is what has happened. But anyway, so after 13 years, they finally signed the treaty. They did have to change a couple clauses because of new taxes, the BEAT tax, more corporate tax stuff. So what that means is it actually has to go back to Chile. They have to ratify it, and then it comes back to the U.S. to formally actually ratify the treaty. So while it is exciting that the Senate approved it, it isn't actually yet ratified because there's multiple steps in the process because of this length of the time that it's taken. But it's good news for U.S. companies. Chile has a lot of mining going on right now, so it's good news for companies trying to send people to Chile and really get into the mining industry, the copper mines there and things like that. And there is a pension clause in the treaty. And one of the big things that we always like to see in treaties with mobility, right? So the mobility piece is, it's a great idea when you can stay in your home country pension and not have tax effects.
Okay, Pat, we've got one question for you. We've only got a minute or so, so I need to have the quick version. Let's just put that. Let's just put that one back up on stage.
If I can see it.
From our former friend Pat, not former friend, our friend, but former presenter Pat.
Oh, Pat's going to ask me a technical question.
I know. This is like one-on-one. This is like Game of the Champions or something. This is like a final. Tax final. Do you think that how treaties are used in global mobility context as a result? Oh, it's gone again. Can you leave it up there, please, Cara? Do you think how treaties are used in the global mobility context as a result of the BEPS and multilateral instrument updates? The 90-second answer, please.
How they're used, I'm not sure what exactly he's asking, but BEPS is all about transfer pricing and how things are moved around the world. So I think there's got to be some focus on how you're cross-charging and the way you're treating your compensation. I'm not sure exactly what Pat's trying to ask there, but yeah, there is an effect of all that stuff. And the protocols are updating some of those things.
Okay, well, maybe that's something we'll get into in a future week. Pat, if you shoot us a bit more details about that question, we'll try and come back to it another time. So meanwhile, we're going to move on, I think. Was there any further comments you wanted to make? You were done. That's what I thought. Yeah, brilliant. So that's been just wonderful, Julie. Really, really appreciated it. We're now going to bring on stage Cara from Benevo, who's standing in this week for Tally, who is somewhere mid-ferry or get on a ferry to go somewhere up to a Greek island or something amazing, exotic. So we're bringing Cara. And so everybody, please hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button as we welcome onto stage my colleague out in Houston, Cara Butler.
Hey, Brian.
Cara, how
Hi.
you doing?
I'm good. I've got big shoes to fill this week.
Absolutely, but you're doing spectacularly well. So many, many thanks. So, Cara, first of all, thank you for being our backstage guru this week. But what are you going to update us about? What's news in Benivo world?
Yeah, actually, thank you, Brian. I'm glad to be here as well, and excited to be here today. But I wanted to take this opportunity just to make sure that everyone knows about the valuable information that we're sharing on our Benivo blog, and that everyone's taking advantage of this really incredible resource. We're posting regular insights and information about the latest industry trends and developments. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of those examples today. Both of them are written by our client advisor, Russ Haney. And the first one is called The Rise of the Core Flex Policies. And in this post, we discussed the results of the 2023 Core Flex benchmarking survey that we conducted. And it really revealed that 53% of respondents have already implemented or plan to adopt Core Flex policies. So we explained how organizations are using these policies to optimize cost performance. And it's really interesting to see how they're becoming more common in the industry. And the other post by Russ is titled Matrix-Driven Mobility and Tailoring Benefits to Purpose. And here we explored the shift from traditional approaches to purpose-driven matrix models. And we looked at how companies are changing allowances, prioritizing tax efficiency, and really offering more choices to give employees flexibility and personalized relocation packages. And this is allowing them to align these approaches with their organizational goals, and allow them to stand out in the competitive talent landscape. So just, again, just to let everybody know that the blog is a valuable resource. So I think Michelle is going to share the link where you can click and subscribe. So please do that today. And you'll be able to see all the latest news, benefit from our team's expertise, and stay informed about cutting edge developments in the industry and in our field. So that's it for today.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Cara. And we're now going to bring on the wonderful Billy Ho. Just a word to the audience. I know some people, I saw it myself on one of the many screens I've got, found that the program sort of restarted by itself. If that does happen to you at any point on this show or another show, just refresh your browser and it will go back to the live stream where we are at the moment. But that's a LinkedIn thing that we can't control. Anyway, I'm now going to bring on the wonderful, wonderful Billy Ho onto our show. So everybody, you know how it works. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's give it up for one of the nicest guys in global mobility, Billy Ho from EA. The cat's there! Yeah! Give it up for Stinky Tofu. So tell us, why is this cat so famous? This cat is a legend in our industry.
This cat only shows up when I put on my headphone or when my camera is on. So he's definitely the Hollywood fame craving cat. Look at him. He's just going to do a catwalk for a couple of minutes across my face. But here he is. Popular demand.
Okay, so I don't know, maybe I shouldn't bother interviewing you. I think I might just interview Stinky Tofu. I've got to ask you this. How did you get your name? No, I don't want to see the cat's backside. There is a limit here.
Well, I name all my pet after some sort of food. So I have 2 dogs and 2 cats. And this particular one, when I first adopted him, he stinks a lot. And so at the same time, I was having preserved tofu. So there you go, 1 + 1. Stinky Tofu, and now he's Hollywood famous.
Okay, so you're the coolest guy in relocation. So Mike Fillier says, which has just upset everybody else in the entire industry, me included. But you are super cool, Billy.
Too kind.
Absolutely. And Nolan is saying the same. So there you are. There's a fan club. So tell us, for those of you who don't know you, Billy, tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us your background. Where did you grow up? Tell us a bit about your life story.
Yeah, so it goes pretty far back. I mean, I'm originally from Hong Kong, but I moved to America when I was still a kid, and that's how I started my American life. And ever since, I've been in America, California, Bay Area, and having my first experience in mobility just because I have moved from Hong Kong as a kid. That really leave a great mark in getting to where I am today.
So were you part of the sort of the 1997 generation?
Yes, I am. So you guessed it just right. I moved in July 1997.
Right. Okay. That was sort of ahead of the handover.
Exactly. So again, it's not really by my choice. I was still a kid. I was actually thinking that we were on vacation. It's just we never gone back afterwards. It was a funny story after that.
Okay. And how did you end up in California? I mean, obviously the US is a big place and there's a big world out there, but why California?
We have family members over here, and that's, again, it's just about moving closer to family and settling down easily. And it was either California or Vancouver, I think, when I asked my parents, and we stayed in California. Here I am. I'm a Californian.
Absolutely. So Vancouver's loss is EA's gain, I suppose. So anyway, so tell us a bit about mobility at EA. I mean, I'm guessing everybody has heard of Electronic Arts, but for those who maybe don't know that much about the company, tell us a bit about the company and its background, how it started, and what you guys do. But I'm guessing most people know quite a lot about you guys.
Absolutely. So, I mean, Electronic Arts, we make games, put it as simple as that. And I lead the talent mobility function here at EA. And we support about 10 to 15% of our company's population with mobility needs.
Wow.
And so,
and how big a team do you have? And let's give them a shout out. So, tell us about your wonderful team.
Yeah, I have a team of 8, and it's spanned across the entire globe. So it goes from Vancouver with Zane and Miriam, Kimmy, Maria, Annette in the US, all the way to Europe in Rob, Claire, and Anna. Hi, if you're looking at the show, hi.
If you're out there, everybody from EA, big applause to you as well. You've got a great team. And I can't believe you said you handle about 10 to 15% of EA's, because most companies, in my experience, it's about 2% of the workforce that seem to touch mobility. So you're touching a much, much higher percentage of the total population. Why is that?
It's because we really value the talent and the movement and being intentional with the deployment of our talent, actually built into our mission as well, to be intentional with the deployment. And again, our CPO has also moved before, and that's, again, given a lot of power as well. Again, we make games. Our customers are everywhere around the globe. Therefore, it only makes sense that our game also matches the culture and the needs and the ask from every customer around the world.
Okay. So what are the major locations that you're moving people to around the world?
It's really focusing where the markets are, but it really spans across Asia, Europe, and all the way to America. So from US, Canada, UK, Sweden, all the way to Shanghai and China. You name it. It touches all the regions.
Okay. And I know you said about 10 to 15%. What's that in terms of numbers? I mean, how many people would you actually be moving in a typical year?
In a typical year, I think about 600 to 800. Add in all the immigration work, add in all the employee requests to move on top of that. It's just, again, the pandemic have given us a new additional population to support. And again, that's just how we support our company in terms of that 10 to 15% of the populations.
Wow, it's amazing. And one of the things I find interesting about your program is in a lot of cases people sit in the reward function, but you guys don't. And you've moved a little bit. Tell us a bit about where you sit and your views on where companies should be sitting in mobility.
So I don't know if there's a particular function to sit in. It really then depends on how you empower yourself and how you be intentional. Again, you're going to hear this word from my mouth multiple times today.
I'm going to come on to that in a lot. I really want to discuss that, but just give me the facts first about where you're sitting, and then we're going to come into intentionality, because I think it's such a cool concept.
Today we sit under the people services team in
Yeah.
support of our entire globe employees. And we used to sit under the talent acquisition. It's mainly because, again, and we still do support mainly our talent acquisition team. And that is mainly because that's how we value the mobility when it comes to intentional talent deployment. We also, longest time back, sat under WeWar as well, but that was before my times. But again, all of that change, all of that trend just speaks to how you take it into your hand, take the power into your hand, and do what you could do good with.
And that is, I think, the key. You've used this word. We used it in the title, used it in the green room. We've used it, a few times on the show already. We've talked about intentionality, which, I'll be honest, wasn't a word I was that familiar with beforehand. But I know, having sort of looked into it a lot, there's quite a lot of philosophy behind it. But tell us what intentionality is, because it seems so important, not just in mobility, but we'll come on to that, but in our everyday lives. So tell us what is, in your words, what is the intentionality principle?
Yeah, like I mentioned, intentionality is built into our mission. Mission is something that we value very heavily at EA in terms of, think of it as a North Star, think of it as a motivation. And so with that in mind, really translating it into what I asked the team to focus on is the consultation with our key partners. Not just to answer the question, but also to ask the why, and then provide our recommendation. Because again, that is how we can partner closely with them and drive what's best for the business and their ultimate goal. Intentional with our investment, intentional with the time, intentional with the location. You name it, intentionality.
Okay, so I think what you're saying is that, I think it's so great, is that when you do something, it should be done with purpose. You don't just do things without asking the question, why are we doing it? But in advance, we are doing it for this reason or that reason. And that's your North Star, that you set out, this is what we're doing. And presumably that also goes into your private life as well, and the way you live your life. That maybe that's why people like you so much. Maybe I found out the answer. It's because you make an effort in your life. Am I going wrong here? Or is intentionality a personal North Star for you?
Absolutely. Everything that I do it for a reason, and that again is what drives me. And so whether I intentionally spend time doing work, playing games, because I'm a heavy gamer as well, or just out there investing in my own body by exercising, all of that is done with a purpose, and that's what drives me.
Okay, so you being on the show today was not an accident. You were here because there was a reason you wanted to do it, and I'm very flattered that you felt giving back to our community and being on the show was actually something that you didn't just do because you were asked. You had a reason for doing it. It was intentional.
I love this community, and how accidentally I bumped into you. That's how intentional I have been.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me a bit then about intentionality in mobility. So give me a specific example now in terms of how you build intentionality into your mobility program. So
first of all, in our talent mobility team function, we have 4 different pillars. We have relocation, we have immigration, we have tax, and we have flexible work. Think about that is, for an instant, we really embrace the new work trend of the distributed workforce by enhancing and empowering that power and coach our recruiter and people experience partner to understand what's the ultimate intention of the role. So when we ask those questions, it leads into a really informed decision and discussion about how can we benefit from the new work trend. For example, we asked the question, is there a need to be in the office for this role? Are their team closer to a particular location that we can strategize? Is there flexibility or even a benefit to the team for where the candidate's current location is for the team? Again, expanding footprints as it may be. All of those a question, and it all starts with asking the question, and then that's how we can consult on the intentionality in terms of how do we be intentional about investments and balance it with the work trend expectation that we have today. That's what the pandemic left us.
Okay, because actually you mentioned the pandemic. I'm guessing that you guys actually had a pretty good pandemic, because if everybody was locked up at home, then they were playing games. Is that what happened? I mean, did business boom during the pandemic for you guys?
I have to say we're one of the lucky winners of pandemic in the sense that, yes, you're absolutely right. Business boom when people can't go out, they play games. And again, games has always been up there as a form of entertainment, but during the pandemic has definitely become on the mainstream. And now some of the games even becomes Hollywood movie or shows. You can see the trend.
Yeah, it's just incredible. Okay, I want to move the conversation on, but I know intentionality is always in everything you do, but one of the things that you guys do that I think a lot of people don't necessarily do is you in mobility are involved with candidate selection. A lot of companies tell me that the first thing they know about with a move is they're told by the line that Joe is moving from wherever to Mumbai to Palo Alto or whatever the move might be, and that's it. And their job is just to make it happen. But you're actually involved at a stage earlier with candidate selection. So tell us a bit about that, because to me that's really important in terms of getting mobility to have its seat at the table.
So yeah, when we were under talent acquisition, it was again intentionally spend a lot of time working with the leadership team, working with the recruiter to be part of where we can provide the inputs and allow the business to make well-informed decisions. So that all that close partnership didn't just come in as handed to us. We actively and we intentionally built our reputation to be that way. And so now that we really work closely, we have the strong bond with our recruiters and talent acquisition team. We are involved when the business is choosing a couple of the candidates and say, hey, let's do a mobility planning out of it. And my mobility planning means we have a set number of questions that we usually ask to, again, understand what's the ultimate intent to provide that well-informed recommendation so that they can use it as a consideration, whether that be location, whether that be intentional investment, immigration, tax, you name it, touches all of our pillars. Those are the consultation that we do with our business.
So you mentioned pillars. What are your pillars?
So the 4 pillars that we have, the relocation, immigration, tax, and flexible work, that we always stay true to those 4 pillars, whatever work that we do. Okay. And then you said you asked questions. Can you give examples of the sort of questions you asked during the candidate selection process? So yeah, goes back to, is there a benefit for the candidate to be in the current location in terms of expanding the footprint of the team and the coverage of their business? Is there a team that's closer to a particular location? Because one thing that we have definitely learned throughout the pandemic is relocating to a specific location that we used to go to an office or a particular headquarters may not always be true nowadays. With the pandemic left us the flexibility and the choice. So those are the questions that we ask. And Drew, shout out to Drew. Drew said this. Let's just get that back on stage. He said, "Love the pre-hire career plan. Has to help employees feel valued." We'll leave that just up there for a moment or two. But tell us a bit more about the pre-hire career plan. Tell us what that looks like and how you'd go about doing that. Yeah, so again, staying within the mobility limits that we have, where we consult the business is really understanding the location strategies. How does it work for their business? How has it been working previously? All of that is we have data to show. Again, data informed decision, and that's basically one of the power that we use. All that pre-hire career plan, all of that is all combined with other teams to provide, again, so that both the business and the candidate and employees are making well-informed decisions. Everybody is in a win-win situation.
Okay, and moving on, I know you're very focused on the concept of employee choice as part of the process. So tell us a bit about employee choice and how that works at EA.
So this is something that we're still developing, but again, some of the blog that you have mentioned about Core Flex is really to enable that employee choice. Instead of calling Core Flex, we call it employee choice, in the sense that I always believe, now especially with the work trend today, there's a lot of value for an employee to be part of the journey, not just sitting in a wagon and getting pulled, but actually involved in building their mobility journey. So one of which is if we can give flexibility to employee to choose a benefit that works for them and their family, that speaks a lot more to their involvement, and that speaks a lot better to their experience. So this is something that we're developing in terms of how do we allow that choice, again, with Cartwheel, but allow that choice to be built into it to support our employees' move. Yeah.
So in your vision, I know you're building it out, but in the vision, do you think people will have a small core and a lot of choice, or do you think there'll be quite a big core and just choice around the edges? I mean, how I don't know what the word is. How aggressive do you think you'll be in terms of, how far the choice will go? And actually, there's a question also from Jacqueline. So, do you also provide choice for the partner of the employee?
Yeah, I mean, again, like I mentioned, the employee and partners and families are all part of the decision-making journey. So yes, to answer that question, and honestly, the best example I can give, not that I'm trying to sell Five Guys burger, but the best example I can give is if you walk into a Five Guys burger, it gives you two menus, two items, right? So it gives you that guided, okay, so that's the default that you want to use or you want to order. But it also gives you a lot of those choices that you can add, minus, simple as that. That's how I envision our employee choice program eventually.
It's a great analogy. Okay, so you've got the burger or whatever, and then you can choose all the dressings or from the range of dressings and toppings that you want.
Exactly. If you want raw onion versus grilled onion, you have a choice. Again, all that is choice.
Absolutely. And as I said, there is a blog on the Beneva website. You can download a whole sort of white paper on Core Flex. So we'll put that on screen at the moment. Just go on on the site and you can download about it. But so moving on, I think, how do you connect talent and mobility in your world? Because sometimes talent and mobility can be a little bit siloed. How do you work together? How do you pull together talent and mobility?
So interesting enough, again, our name used to be Global Mobility when it first started.
I think Stinky Topu's got an answer here as well. So we want to hear.
Yes, he definitely want to contribute.
In the background,
you can hear him well. So we name ourselves to talent mobility because of that. Is again, we really believe in the power of our talents and taking care of our talents, and both the external candidate and the internal employees. We believe that mobility, we can be a leverage to even develop our talents. So this is something that for really prime example is we built our internal mobility policy. That is prime example is because the driver there is really how do we support our talent development through accessing different opportunities and including mobility opportunities and experience.
Okay. And another issue that's come up when we were chatting earlier was you talked about building a community of transferees. And tell us a bit about that. I mean, how do you build that community? How are people sort of bonding together with each other?
that is my aspiration. Aspiration in the sense that there's different priorities, but I honestly believe that within EA, one of our best asset is our people, and one of the best supporter are our people. And
Absolutely.
so in order for someone to feel comfortable relocating, it's all about sharing their experience. So if we can build a community within EA, that's what my aspiration is, that allows people who wants to move to be able to get information from people who has moved or has been there before. That's a powerful community that one support another to take away those stress, to take away those unknowns, and just make it into a joyful experience when it comes to relocating. One of the things about people saying relocation is stressful, I accept that as a fact, but I also think that we could do more so that relocation is not as stressful and it's enjoyable.
Absolutely. And I mean, to me, when people move, there's probably only one question that they only ever ask. We can actually boil it down. And that question typically is, what do people like me do? You know, people like me who are doing that move, you know, what do we do for our, I don't know, our broadband or our bank or our commute to work or where we live, or do we need a car? You know, people just want to know, what do other people do? And whilst for every individual person moving, the move is a new move, the chances are somebody has done it before. And that's why, certainly with our platform, one of the things we have, we call it social insights, but we have that information on the system where people can learn from each other. Actually, funnily enough, in the company you're in, is that what we've done is we've gamified it. So we actually incent people share information, and then they get basically a charitable donation depending on the number of inputs they put into the system to gamify the experience. But I mean, that is so cool, the fact that we can all learn from each other. And that's the sort of thing you're aspiring to at the moment, is it?
Absolutely. And you are ahead of me with the gamifying too, because it fits very well to our portfolio. I'm a very competitive person when it comes to gaming, and therefore I have incentive and motivation to even do more to support the community because of that.
Yeah, I think we all know, you know, incentives work. They don't necessarily always work the right way, but they work. I mean, if you're incented to do something, you do something. And I suppose gamifying is effectively creating incentives. You know, you do this in games to whatever, sort of win a life or win a superpower or whatever, to win something. That's the point of gamifying. And if we can do that with mobility, so if people do the right behaviors, whatever those behaviors are, and in this case, it's helping others, they're actually helping each other. Stephen Holmesy says, we all love a good point system. Yeah, absolutely. Certainly with our gamifying, it's basically points means prizes, that every time you answer a question and give feedback, you get a point. And once you've got to a certain level of points, there's a donation to a charity that you choose. But points seem to work. And so that's the sort of area, the sort of thing that you're looking at in terms of gamifying, is it?
Absolutely. All those are great ideas, as my aspiration, again, is to build that community to support one another. I'm really big in terms of the power of community. And so that is going to continue to stay true and continue to stay as my North Stars.
Absolutely. And I want to take another question here is how do you find you balance the needs of your individual employees with the broader goals of the company when designing and implementing your global mobility initiative? Because clearly the company has got its objectives and the employees have got theirs. How do you balance that slight tension, if you like?
It's all about listening. So listening to our employees, listening to our business, and really sharing the point of view with each other through our expertise. And that's how everything gets started. So it's never going to be one-sided. As if we can listen to both sides, the product that we build will only be that much better. Similar to a game, if we listen to our customer, which we do, the games perform better. There's a statistic that backs all of that. So again, I'm really big on data and data is showing me that, that's what I believe in. Listen to both sides.
So you're always listening to your transferees to get their feedback so that that can refine what you do going forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Okay. And we've talked about intentionality, which I think for many will be a very appealing concept, but also maybe a slightly novel concept. For somebody wanting to build intentionality into their mobility program for the first time, what tips would you give to actually set about starting an intentional global mobility program?
I would say this is one of those times when curiosity does not kill the cat.
Oh, don't kill the cat. Do not kill the cat.
So therefore, be curious.
Traumatized. Stinky Tofu is just traumatized at this point, thinking, what did I do wrong?
No, he's absolutely fine. Don't worry about him. He has lived through many, many different of my comments. So again, this all goes back to be curious. Talk to your business partners. Understand what they're doing and planning for the future, and insert yourself to be a consultant and partner. Because again, it goes back to listening. Spend those time intentionally to listen and partner. That's when, again, partnership built. That's when the product is joint. That's when everything just becomes that much more intentional.
Okay. I want to sort of change the topic slightly. I mean, we're all focused these days on diversity, equity, and inclusion, DE&I. How do you, and obviously you've got a very intentional program. I'm sure your program is intentionally very focused on DE&I. How do you do that in practice? What are you doing in practice to build DE&I initiatives into EA's mobility program?
Yeah, so we're definitely at EA, we're big on DE&I as well. So we have our own function and team within our organization that focuses on DE&I. And DE&I then is it shows itself in different functions, including our function as well. So as we partner with our DE&I team, understanding again the feedback from our employee, the trends, I talk to my peers and my friends, gathering all that information is that how we then inform our program and make the changes to increase our DE&I, whether that be, again, extending more support to a partner. That would be one prime example. Or just providing different choices eventually that handles the DE&I perspective. That's another angle.
Okay, so I mean that's really, really helpful. So you've got a program which is intentional, and I know measuring success is key to being intentional, because if you don't know what you're being intentional about, then the chances are you're going to end up doing something wrong. So how do you measure success in terms of your mobility program, in terms of achieving those intentional outcomes and meeting the needs of both the organization and the employees? So yeah, how do you measure success? What does success look like?
Good question. Good question. Again, it goes back to whether we're meeting the end goal of what we generally align with the business partner on the intentional outcome. And so we measure each of the milestones. We continue to stay in touch. It's all about really building the plane together in a sense. And that's what we measure. And then when we look at the data, we look at the data in terms of what's the talent development, what's the career growth when someone who had a mobility experience, what's the retention strategy when someone has a mobility experience, all of that. You'd be surprised how readily available those data are within our company, within our industry. So it's more about tapping into those data, and that's how we measure success, is through the data, through the intentional outcome, and the continued conversations.
Yeah, I remember the legendary baseball player Yogi Berra once said, or is alleged to have said, that if you don't know where you're going, the chances are you'll end up someplace else. So I'm guessing it becomes easier to measure success if actually at the outset you've defined what success looks like.
Absolutely. You have a North Star, you have an end goal, you head towards that end goal, and then you reach the other one, and you keep on going from a milestone perspective all the way to the end.
So give me a specific example for an assignment, what success might look like.
So I would say, again, one of the things that we always show with our executive is the data. Again, it goes back to not just the data within the mobility industry in the field, but really expanding that and working with different function in terms of the talent data. And so for an example, what we have is, again, going back to one of my example of internal mobility policy, is we really did partner really well with the talent acquisition team and the talent development team to really measure what's the need, what are feedback from our employees in terms of providing more internal opportunities. And as a result, as a product, we have internal mobility policy, and that's how we measure success as well, because we review the data, we set the goal that we need to have more intentionality into the internal mobility growth. End goal, we have the policy that serves our employees' needs.
Okay, and we've literally got a minute and a half left. I'll just take one last question that's come through here. This is going back to something we were talking about earlier. This is from Erin, and she said, curious, with the social impact feature of the software, what do you, i.e. HR mobility team, do if there's negative feedback that grows and grows about a particular service? Do you just take it off the list? Or, so I'm guessing you do, but what do you do if you've got something there that's negative on your list?
When Erin say take it off the list, so I guess the way how I understand the approach of what we do is we get in contact, understand the better of the context of perhaps a negative feedback, and work together on understanding what was the feedback and how can we do better. So we don't ignore it, definitely not. We actually really proactively and in the front base really address it, but we address it with some context.
Cool. So it all comes back to your North Star. You've set it out, you know what the intention is of that move, you'll measure against it, and you're always looking at it in that context. It's been fascinating. We're getting towards the end of the hour, so I'm going to bring Julie and Julia back on stage, and indeed I'm going to bring Cara back. And we want to see Stinky Tofu one last time to join the show. Is he there? I was actually asked, do you have another cat called Durian? I'll ask that. But it's been, Billy, it's been a delight and a pleasure having you on the show. Really, really appreciate it. And the warmth that the industry feels for you. Please, take that home and enjoy it, because there is a glow out there of people who just like and love and respect you, Billy. So many, many thanks for being on our show. Many thanks as ever to Julie Onslow-Cole from Fragman for her immigration updates, and Julie Barron from Vialto Partners for her tax updates. And many thanks to my colleague Cara Butler from Houston for stepping in to help out behind the scenes whilst Tally has been traveling into the Greek islands. This has been The View from the Top. We've had our hour. It's the end of the week. We will be back next week when we're going to be talking about how you can make smart cost estimates even smarter. It promises to be a great show. Goodbye, everybody, and have a great, great week.